let's just get started. You ready to go, Amy?
Sure.
What was your challenge prior to the stick to it system that you experienced? Like, why did you book the call with me?
Sure. It was a slow but steady weight gain. And in the past, there were different tools I used to, lose weight, and I was capable of doing it. And this time I just felt stuck. The weight was, piling on, and just, I couldn't get out of my own way to, focus on my nutrition and movement and all of that. So,
And you couldn't get out of your own way. I like that you said that. So this is why and how did you find us? I always am curious. How did you find us?
sure, I was scrolling on Facebook, sitting on the couch, and happened to see one of your posts, and decided, I read through. You had a short video, and at that point, you were doing one of your master classes, a free master class, and so I booked that and hopped on. And after listening, I thought, yeah, I'll book the call and have a chat.
I love that. And like, this is something that maybe I didn't ask in the questions ahead of time, but was it weird to trust a stranger on the internet? Like, this is always something that I'm like, was it odd? Because I know we didn't know each other before, right? I'm like miles away from you in a different country. What was that like for you? Just to say, okay, this is this stranger I'm going to decide to work with.
Right. It was a little weird. Certainly, I thought about it a bit, but at the same time, for years I've done internet searching for, weight loss strategies, whatever they were, and it wasn't somebody I knew personally that was, whether it was pills or a diet or whatever. I didn't know them, and so I thought, what the heck? I'll do the call and see what happens.
Awesome. I love that. And so how long do you think that you tried it on your own before you did decide to seek out extra support? Call the call.
I've been, since I'd say probably college, on and off, trying to lose weight. And when I was younger, a lot of times it was easy to set a goal for myself and sign up for, 10 years ago, it was a half marathon. So, I trained and trained and trained, and the weight came off. But as soon as, kind of the goal was met of the half marathon, then, it was easy to slip back into older teens. And this time, certainly, not to use COVID as an excuse, but it was very easy when everything got locked down to just be at home. And I started working from home. And so certainly the last year and a half, I normally work in a lab. And so I'm moving around all day long and up and down stairs. And I went from that to sitting at home 40 hours a week in front of a laptop, and then wandering by the pantry 100 times a day. So yeah, it was certainly like this last year and a half. And, every week I'd try, Monday morning, here we go, we're going to be good and be on track. And whether it was by noontime or the end of the day, or even if I made it to the end of the week, sooner or later, the floodgates open. So yeah, certainly the last year and a half.
Yes, definitely. Right. And I think a lot of people can relate with that. Right. And that's where I've heard a lot, like COVID made me gain 20 pounds. And so that's a very interesting, right? It's kind of weird that we can all relate with the same thing. But I'm curious, like during this time, where would you say you were at with the hormonally, like the whole menopause situation, and how was that affecting your weight gain? Because you mentioned that the scale was going up, you were searching out a lot of different things, but you were also stuck at home, which means we're basically glued to the fridge. So where were you at with that?
Sure, I was kind of perimenopause, and still in it, kind of in that mode for the past 2 to 3 years. And again, I think, you know, just the hormones in general, and a lot of the thoughts I think women have about kind of hitting your mid to late 40s and and early 50s, and just thinking, this is it. You know, it's just gonna happen. The weight is just gonna come on, and thinking no matter what you do, whether it's genetics, hormones, or whatever, you're kind of stuck with that. So I was certainly in that mindset as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the accept defeat mindset. It's like,
Yeah.
ah, this is just what's going to happen, which is so interesting, right? I love that you pointed out that the thoughts, because when we are thinking thoughts like that, like how much easier it is to be like, this is just the way it's going to be. Where's my cupboard of Oreos, right? And so I love that. And so you mentioned like weight was harder to lose. So what did you try to do to overcome those challenges? Like, what are some of the other plans that you tried, or what did you try in the past before we had a call?
Sure. So, I mean, Weight Watchers was certainly one that I had done. I did something on the internet called Diet Bet, where you bet on yourself. Essentially, you put money in, and then, you need to lose a certain percentage of your weight in a certain amount of time, which did again motivate me for a while. And then, my big go-to was always calories. Counting calories and just exercising like crazy, just beating myself up, making sure I was, an hour a day or whatever, whether it was running. And so that, yeah, it was a combination of all of that, really.
100%. Oh man. So I think a lot of people can relate with that. A lot of people I hear are do Weight Watchers, which is not a bad thing. Like wait, there's nothing wrong with it, but there is a piece of it that I hear that some are missing, right? Like one person just said to me this morning, like Weight Watchers taught me how to track things and to make room for my cookies, right? And how to have that in the day rather than learn how to lower my desire for the cookies, right? And so I think that's an important piece that I love for everybody to learn, is that, you know what, we can lower desire for those things so that we're not really fighting with it all the time, which I think makes our lives just a little bit easier. I'm curious, like, was it difficult to invest in yourself? Like, was that a difficult step for you, especially when the internet says, do this, do this, do this, right? I can do it on my own, right? Like a lot of us have thought that for a really long time. And why or
It
why
was
not?
it was initially, and I think again my brain went right to, after talking to you. I thought, yeah, I think this is, it's a really good program. It's sound, and but then my brain immediately went to, well, you've got birthdays coming up, and you're going to go on vacation, and holidays, and it's like, it just, do I want to spend the money to know I'm going to fail? I'm not going to stick to a plan because we're going to be doing all this other stuff. But I did, I sat down with my husband, and we talked it through, and I mean, he was 1,000% on board. He said, it's, if that's what you want to do, go for it. And I'm so glad I did, because I did, I signed up with you in April, and immediately, it was Mother's Day and both my kids' birthdays and Father's Day and my 50th birthday, and then vacation. But through all of that, I've lost weight, so it's doable. But certainly, the first step I definitely thought about for quite a while before jumping in.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Right. Because like we said, we're a stranger on the internet, and like investing in ourselves, we're so used to having all this information in front of us, but when it doesn't work like it can be scary to do that. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us. And so I'm curious at this point, like, what are your results so far? Like, if you're willing to share the numbers, and also the symptoms. You mentioned that, like, some of the menopause, perimenopause symptoms, right? Those feelings, and plus the thought work that says, you know what, I'm just doomed anyway. So I'd love to hear, like, what are some of the results, not only with like physical results, but with that side, the thought side of things too. Like what changed for you there?
Sure. So, for anybody looking to lose weight, I'm sure that, the numbers it's an easy thing. So, I have lost 36.5 pounds, which is fantastic. And certainly I didn't have a whole lot of symptoms as far as menopause. But certainly, I'd say that my hot flashes are much better. I sleep better at night. Overall, my energy is much better. And, I've, and the thoughts, again, there's the coaching with the brain is so much more important than just being handed a food plan and this is what you're going to eat and when you're going to eat it. We can all figure that out. It's an important part to understand that we're nourishing ourselves as opposed to just grabbing food. And being able to focus on that has been great. But just my overall mindset, I'm so excited to, we've been doing, my husband and I go out for a hike weekly now, and 10, 12 miles, not just, a casual walk. Like we're making time for that. And, and I'm doing it from a place of enjoyment and wanting to get out in nature. And, you and I've talked, I've started running again, and it's not to punish myself and to get exercise in. I like getting outside. The weather here is beautiful right now. We have, beautiful fall weather. And so just in general, there are times where it's still nice to have a cup of tea and get on the couch and not move. I'm not going to say I'm just going, but it's so much easier to get out because I just want to, as opposed to kind of sitting on the sidelines right now. So
totally. And do you think, because you mentioned energy, like before you got started, do you feel like you had the energy to hike 10, 12 miles?
No, definitely not. And again, whether it's physical or mental, and it's probably a combination of both. Yes, I'm definitely physically in a better place. But it's a lot of it again is the mental, just, not wanting to sit on the couch and then getting done with a hike and still being able to go to my son's soccer games and it's not come home and, oh, I need a nap. I can't possibly do anything else. So, it's just overall, much more energy.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And so with my one last question I want to ask you, which might be like a bit of a surprise question, but I'm curious, your biggest takeaway from the program be that you could share with other people who might be curious about, like changing their health, whether it's with me or whether it's with somebody else, but just investing in their health. And what would be the biggest takeaway for you, to not be doing it by yourself? Like, I'm curious about that.
Sure. I just didn't have the tools, for people who don't realize it's a coaching session and to have you help your clients work through it, and obviously we're mostly focused on the nutrition and hormone balances and weight. But, as you and I have talked about, having the coaching tools that we can use ourselves to coach ourselves, it's not just for the nutrition. Like that was a great place for me to get started and to focus on. And now that I feel like I have a handle on that, I can use the same tools to work through, whatever it is, whether people want to exercise or move more, or with, if they have their own business or work, and relationships and things like that. And so I never, that was just a component that has always been missing out of other weight loss plans. But then just in general, I did not have those tools before in my life to work through a lot of issues. And it's so important. And until I was a part of your program, I really didn't know that existed. So that's, my biggest takeaway for sure.
Which means that it goes much further than beyond our weight. And I believe when we have something that's more beyond that, it gives us a really great reason to keep going with it, right? When we see changes in all sorts of our lives, because then we don't have to feel mega restricted. And so I'm curious, everybody is wondering, right? Did you feel mega restricted throughout the process?
No, I didn't. It certainly to start, if you're in your pantry every day and you're eating the cookies and the chips and everything else, and suddenly, but if you want to work on your nutrition, you can't be eating those things all the time anyway. And so being given a plan where you focus on nourishing, but it's also, we work on planning our meals so then you can have a piece of the birthday cake or, whatever your a Friday night glass of wine or whatever it is. So I'd say the first couple weeks, I mean, it's nice because I might have felt a little restricted, but that's when you're so excited to like start a new plan anyway. So early on, it's quote unquote easy to stick to. But as you're training your brain and you understand either why you're doing the things you're doing, as far as, what you're eating and learning how to plan your food, I didn't feel restricted at all. But I also think I was ready. I was ready to, this was the way I was going to get back on track. And again, with weight, but just in general, with my whole life. So yeah, I did not feel restricted.
That's amazing. And back on track you are, right? 36.5 pounds down, which is amazing, right? Especially when you said weight was climbing. Menopausal mindset can often be weight is difficult to lose. And you've proved that is a myth. And so I love that. And really that's all I'm going to ask for you today, but I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.